schools don't foster actual curiosity or creativity. They only foster us learning very select things, regurgitating them onto tests, and then moving on. And that's really failing us, especially given how our modern world, you really do need and benefit from being curious and creative and therefore doing your own initiative when it comes to learning new skills or learning new things. So let's talk about that. So first, let's look at our current system. So our current public school system, which is what the majority of children are in, is extremely rigid, both in the schedule and in the actual material being taught. In many places, you can see our current school system and the way that it's scheduled being compared to prisons and students to prisoners, as we are literally just forced into these hollow, bland buildings for most of our time, forced to just sit still and learn the material based off of presentations. So we don't really do much, we don't foster much of the actual things that you need to be like a human, a productive member of society. Instead, we just learn the very structured material that we are given. It's very much so based off of checklists and standardized tests rather than like treating them like people and actually like being flexible, because people are flexible and will have different strengths and weaknesses. And it does make sense why it would be made this way, why it's more so that you can regurgitate things and that you can sit still for hours on end, because the current school system was made to create good factory workers. It wasn't made to create people who can do creative things, who can move around, who are good people. It's made so that you have good workers that know the basic skills that they need and that are already primed to sit there and do whatever it is that you want them to do. And with the whole homework thing, they're already primed to think that doing extra work is normal and is expected. So you're getting all of this wonderful trained free labor. It's great. It's what benefits the system right now. And while for many jobs that is still what they need and are asking for, there's a lot of other jobs where that is not what is valued. And also just in general, shouldn't we move past this archaic idea that we need to be the perfect workers and maybe actually move forward into creating good people, or into creating a system that is more just beneficial to people as people over people as workers? And yet, that priority has yet to shift. If you look at what lawmakers and those in charge are continuing to prioritize, it is again those standardized tests. Lawmakers are constantly trying to get us to do better on these tests rather than any other standard of trying to measure kids. And the current standardized test industry and all of the industries that currently keep our school systems the way they are huge, and so there's a lot of money behind keeping things the way that they are. But when you look at different systems or different ways of educating children, you see very different results. The current other system that kind of exists as an alternative to the public school system and the private school system is very similar, so we're going to kind of clump those together as the traditional school system is Montessori learning. And there's like a few different things that go into that, but really the basis that makes it different is that it's more so about a hands-on approach, about students learning through what they enjoy doing or learning through projects rather than learning through presentations and sitting in classrooms and like that kind of thing. That's generally like the difference. And research has shown that these kids are way more creative. And creativity is also being linked with a lot of other beneficial things. You're a much better problem solver. They've actually found they do better when it comes to testing for those like math, science, on those test scores. Those doing Montessori learning are doing better than the kids doing the traditional school system, which is meant to be so great for those standardized tests. And when you look at the modern world and what jobs and skills that people need a lot more of those creative and more curious problem-solving, questioning skills than they need those traditional sit down and do a thing jobs. Look at what I do here on this channel. I'm creating an opportunity for myself because I'm learning a lot of skills. I could potentially turn this into a career one day. And I most certainly did not get here from a very traditional sit there and learn in a classroom kind of thing. I did this because I'm naturally curious and come up with all these random questions that I research weekly. I got here because I naturally just know how to pick up skills like video editing and essay and presentating. I keep on doing that as a joke. In presentation, I didn't do that through the traditional method. I did it through a more montessori thing of going by doing and by natural want to do things. Now let's move on to a more doomsday look at the future too. So there's many theories that as we go forward with more automation, that the only jobs available will be creative jobs that a robot literally cannot do. So a lot of factory work, a lot of just like do this very standard thing jobs are likely to go away. Even things like truck driving with automated vehicles are looking to go away in maybe even the next 10 to 30 years. And if the only jobs left are those that are creative, where you need that very human kind of thing, then a school system that is continuing to crank out factory workers over creative thinkers is not going to benefit anyone. But it's also very difficult to change the system. Like I said before, there's a lot of money in keeping it the way it is. And while I have had some amazing teachers that have definitely fostered my love for different subjects, teachers are already overworked and underpaid. We can't really ask for more from them. And lawmakers don't seem to really care much about education. So it's difficult to say that there's one solution. I mean, there's even inequalities right now, even in the school system, but even in how much that creativity can be fostered. In environments where students are feeling unwelcomed or not feeling safe, they aren't going to be able to be as creative because they're just trying to get by, and all of those fundamental issues need to be solved before we can even start to try to better society as a whole. We need to have everyone on an equal playing field. I'm hopeful that as we continue to move forward that maybe there will be change, and that maybe with the next generation of lawmakers there will be a change in what we look for. But for now, it seems like we'll have to just settle for random girls on YouTube who tell you fun little facts and science. So like, comment, and subscribe so that you can be the next creative, curious person doing better on your test scores and such. Segues. I feel like for so many of these, there's never actually like a solution. It's just like, hey, hypothetically, this thing kind of sucks and we should do something about it. But what can one person do about it? Not much. Which kind of sucks, but at least now I know more about Montessori learning and about how creative thinking is really helpful